Thank you, Chairwoman. Ms. Alt, I'm concerned that you, first of all, I'm confident you and I share the same goals of increasing safety on our nation's highways, and I appreciate all your work, and I really appreciate the things your company does. But I'm really just kind of concerned when I read your written testimony. You refer to the legislation I introduced with Senator Rubio in it, and I was actually pretty shocked at what I read. The Wi-Fi Innovation Act, which is a bipartisan, in both House and Senate, piece of legislation. Our bill, for those who've read it, places timelines and guidelines in place for the FCC to test the 5 gigahertz spectrum band in consultation with the Department of Transportation. Some of this testing has already happened, and we're excited about that, but our bill simply provides further structure for testing alone. I can understand why a lot of people in the industry want to attack this, as you did in your written testimony, and maybe even mislead people, because the industry's been sitting on this spectrum since about 1990. But I want to be very clear about what this bill actually does for you and for others. For over a decade, the industry's been working on new technology, while at the same time, other technologies using radars, and sensors have evolved without using dedicated spectrum. Over $1 billion of taxpayer dollars, money has been spent on this R&D, and our bill simply asks for testing to see whether this limited resource, this precious resource that you indicated, can be shared. It is a fact-finding bill, and that is all. If it's not safe to share, I agree, and the bill clearly says there will be no sharing. But if it can be safely shared now as the other technologies are evolving, I'm sure people would agree that it should be. So I'm disappointed in the portrayal of my and Senator Rubio's legislation in your testimony. I'm shocked. I've been in the Senate for a short time, but I've never seen something clearly so misleading in the short time I've been in the Senate. I've worked closely with stakeholders on this from all across the board, from Secretary Fox to Advanced Safety, as supporters of V2V technology. Senator Rubio and I were steadfast advocates of highway safety. Safety should come first. But I'm disappointed by these exaggerated attacks. And so the first question I simply have is, did you read our legislation? Yes or no?
No.
Okay. So if you didn't read the legislation, but yet you say the Wi-Fi Innovation Act would open up 5.9 gigahertz frequency spectrum to Wi-Fi access, that's not true. That is a false statement. And that is very frustrating. And so encountering something that, when I was mayor, I used to always say, in God we trust, but everybody else bring me data. Bring me the facts. Everybody wants to obscure them, but the truth should come through. And so a fact-finding bill that simply looks to understand what is the best way that we can achieve the safety goals that your company puts first, that this senator and I'm sure the whole panel puts first. And so I'm just curious, my last question to you is, I believe consumers should have all options on the table that should advocate safety. And I'm wondering if you agree that our transportation policy should be actually technology neutral, that should be about what is best to ensure that policy and safety don't lag behind the best cutting edge technology. Do you agree with that?
Of course I agree with that.
Okay, so again,
May I respond to some of your comments then?
you certainly may.
Sure. So I think we're on the same page with that. The unlicensed Wi-Fi doesn't have a governance structure like a licensed frequency does. And the IEEE, which is the Industrial Electronic Engineers Group, that is the group that has put 2 proposals forward. They have not come to conclusion. So our position is that the legislation is simply premature.
Ms. Alt, I'm sorry. I can believe your testimony that you submitted to the United States Senate, which doesn't say what you just said. It says and indicates that you are against this bill because it would, quote, and I quote, it would open up 5.9 gigahertz frequency spectrum. That is not true, and you have agree with that. What the bill does when you read it, which I hope you will, what the bill is simply saying is, hey, let's begin to have a fact-finding endeavor that better understands the usage of the spectrum and the question, this is a precious asset, this is why I know your company wants to protect it, can it possibly be shared without infringing on safety? That's all we're looking to do. So attacking the bill on clearly false standings is insulting. My time's run out. Mr. Meisner, how I would love to talk to you more about drones. You know, we share a passion for that and a desire for the United States of America to catch up to the world and other countries that are going ahead of us. It has transformative possibilities, but sadly, I'm coming back down to earth to talk about trucks. So your testimony recommends the use of 10 feet longer trucks, known as Twin 33s. The Department of Transportation recently came out with a study showing that it takes these trucks about 22 feet longer to stop. The length, that's a car length and a half. The larger and heavier trucks are the greater destruction, where the greater destruction occurs when accidents happen. And so I just have a couple questions on that. One is, has your company done an analysis of the impact of safety? How will these longer trucks impact the crashes, the number of crashes and fatalities?
So we've been persuaded by the carriers that we work with, Senator, that the 33-foot trucks are going to be safer because there will be fewer of them on the road, driving fewer miles. Any policy choice like this is a balancing of factors. I totally get that. And I'm not sure there's any particular magic to 33 over, say, 32 or 34, and I'm not sure there's any particular magic to the current number, which is 28. What we're trying to do is find a solution that will improve efficiencies for sure, and that can be done. But at the same time, if we can drive down the number of miles that are driven and the number of trucks on the road, that is a safety improvement. We were persuaded that the right balance was the increase in length without increasing the weight capacity or the total weight of the trucks, because the weight, of course, is what goes into the inertia and the kinetic energy of an object like this. And so it's a weight times velocity is the inertia, not the length of the truck.
And I appreciate that. There's a lot of things to balance. Safety should be the first, but it's also the impact on the infrastructure as well.
Yes,
and so with those heavier trucks, would they tear up more of our local roads?
We don't support heavier trucks, to be clear. Our support is for a longer truck. It's not increasing the weight limits at all, and so increasing the length of the truck should not affect the infrastructure adversely. In fact, it can help it because while going over a bridge, for example, the weight is less concentrated and therefore easier on the bridge.
I appreciate that. And then just lastly, really quickly, another balancing act is you want greater safety, but you also want to see what put the least necessary burden on businesses and how they operate. And so the big issue of minimum insurance is one that I have some concerns about, and I'd love for you to just give me your thoughts. With the truck size and weight, we realize that the trucks are getting bigger, causing bigger accidents as well over the last 20, 30 years, and the minimum insurance has not been raised since the 1980s. And so I'm wondering do you think that there is a needed a minimum insurance level increase, or at least pegging it somehow that is elevated regularly on an ongoing basis?
Well, Senator, it seems very reasonable to me. I mean, the carriers that we use are the ones who are going to be directly affected by that. And so the carriers that we work with are reputable ones. We certainly would not want our products traveling, over problematic or difficult carriers. And so I'm not sure I have a direct answer for you, simply because that wouldn't be directly affecting us at this point.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator.
You can meet me out by the Capitol with a drone if you'd like.
I'll be there.
All right.